it's a cold world, old girl. You know what I mean? It's like your skin has to be thick. Like my skin is like metal, it's like wood. You know what I mean? You can't let things get to you because then you'll crumble.
Sultry, awesomely talented, ceaselessly creative and fiercely determined, Ashanti Douglas is one of the shining lights of the 21st century. There seems no stopping her irrepressible rise to prominence as the golden girl of contemporary urban R&B. She has no obvious precedents, neither does she have any close rivals worthy of the name. Like all great musicians, she possesses an immaculate self-confidence, an innate assurance which sets her apart from her peers and infects every note of her honey-soaked records. This is one girl who has been earmarked for success from a very early age. From signing a deal with Jive at 14 through to striking gold with Irv Gotti's Murder Inc. label, she has battled against the various obstacles strewn across her path to claim the crown as Queen of 21st Century Soul. Already a veteran of show business, she has achieved a considerable reputation for her golden vocals, musical vision and songwriting talent. Her music combines qualities of the spirit and the flesh, of spiritual salvation and earthly lust. Her artistry and personality cannot yield to easy analysis, but it is true that her talent suggests the explosive dynamism of intuitive genius without any of the squeamish excesses of many divas in the soul and R&B tradition. Her slinky, insidiously catchy tunes are often masterpieces of economy, construction and feel, employing subtle, tasteful dynamics to suggest sheer, unrestrained enthusiasm. Her vocals of uncompromising purity and secular ecstasy display a keen intelligence. She has absorbed all the lessons that soul music had to teach her and is now prepared to transcend them. She has cast off the confining straitjacket of her apprenticeship and has taken R&B to a place that no one else could go. In a scene dominated by chancers, one-trick ponies and copyists, Ashanti stands out by a mile. Invigorating, committed to her craft, honest and beautiful, she possesses an abiding love for her art, a love which manifests itself in every one of her recordings. While it's true that female singers come and go almost on a weekly basis, it is also true to say that Ashanti is so Ashanti in her emotional tone, her touch and intonation, in her unprompted leaps of notes and faith, the way she grabs a melody and elicits deep meaning that no other description will suffice. She has created a series of quite brilliant set pieces, offering up exquisite missives about love and longing, all delivered with dollops of genuine pathos, vulnerability and empathy. If you want a tender but joyous affirmation of the possibilities of love, Ashanti's your girl. If you're looking for a statement of independence and free will, look no further. A bootylicious essay on carnality? Here she is. Her songs are direct, vibrant. They create their own structure and melt the heart. Often the emotion wells up in a full-throated cry, which, if not always supported by the weight of the words, invariably uplifts, in a way that cannot be pinpointed, the prosaic limitations of the text. She can infuse even the most hackneyed of R&B clichés with a profundity that says worlds about how some things never die. Such moments of wisdom and eloquence come thick and fast in Ashanti's work. Her music is a confluence of powerful influences and a crystalline manifestation of contemporary urban America in sound. It is much more than your standard, slick, booty-swaying oral wallpaper, an emotional experience to be felt, understood, savoured and enjoyed. There is both a fragility and a jubilant optimism etched into its grooves in equal measure. Why does Ashanti continue to lure listeners into her world? Why does her music draw the attention of listeners seeking enlightenment away from the brutal thwack of nu metal, the bluff bravado of hip-hop, and the twee sobbings of indie rock? What is it about her songs that compel us to devour them over and over again, as if each bite was the last? Well, it's ageless. Her music speaks to us. Her melodies strike emotional chords that resonate deeply within our souls. By writing and singing from the heart, she reduces sadness and elation to their barest essentials, the nitty-gritty. In making her triumphs and tragedies our own, she creates acutely personal art, aching with vulnerability, soul and intelligence. They preserve the mindset of youth, speaking eloquently of love gained and love lost, and all the emotional nuances in between. Ashanti is indisputably a modern icon, a charismatic, vivacious, sharp, clued-up lady who knows what she wants and knows how to get it. Fated by critics and adored by her natural audience, her inclusive artistic sensibility provides a rallying point for those convinced that music can help bring people together. As she wraps her gossamer-like vocals round the most convincing funk-influenced R&B grooves, she knows you've got to keep on pushing till you reach the higher ground. Her success has been gained through sheer bloody-minded determination and constant diligence. There is no one on the R&B circuit who has striven harder to get where they are today. Her records are perfectly formed creations from deep within her soul, imbued with a gospel moan and a below-the-waist sensuality, which taps into the very essence of what it is to be human. It is easy to surrender entirely to the groove, to lose yourself to the ebb and flow of the art, the impetus of her creative expression. The blues are never far away, they're just underpinning her gasping chords, her creamy voice, and her thudding hip-hop undercurrents. For a moment, it seemed that Lauryn Hill had the Queen of R&B tag wrapped up and in her back pocket for the foreseeable future. But that was before the astonishing emergence of Ashanti. She couldn't have predicted such a protean talent snatching her crown and surpassing her standards with deft poise and effortless grace. She has blossomed into a singular, innovative, best-selling visionary artist, the epitome of a 21st century soul diva.
Intended on going to college. I got accepted to 2 colleges and I deferred for like a year. And, I wanted to pursue the music thing. My mom and dad were behind me 100%. But I definitely am going back to college regardless.
Ashanti Douglas was born in 1980 in Glen Cove, Long Island, New York, into a musical family. Her father was a singer and her mother was a dance instructor. She grew up with them and her younger sister, Kanisha, known as Shishi. Mama Douglas was possessed by a feeling that her beautiful little daughter was destined to perform. From the moment she was born, she knew that her Shani was going to grow up to become a major star. She tried to find a birth announcement to express her feelings about the child, but none matched up, so she invented her own. It had an array of musical notes on it, and predicted that Ashanti was going to make it as a dancer. Her parents foresaw a future where she would be dancing to the boogie-woogie beats of the lyrics written by her dad. Ashanti took a couple of years to develop some dancing moves, having to get that tiny obstacle of learning how to walk out of the way first. Mama Douglas had her child dancing as soon as she could walk, and it was evident to everybody that she had inherited a talent from her mother. At this stage, though, there were no thoughts of career ambition. Dancing was just a pleasurable pastime. Ashanti proved to be an adept dancer, effortlessly assimilating new moves and ideas. Ashanti pursued her dancing and concentrated on her studies with no thoughts at all of singing and performing. At the age of 6, she enrolled in a gospel choir, but no one particularly noticed any obvious signs of vocal genius. Then one day, when she was 13 years old, her singing talent was discovered, as with her dancing, by her mother. Ashanti was downstairs in the house helping to clean up, vacuuming away, when she broke into a few lines of Mary J. Blige's Reminisce. Hearing this voice, her mother shouted down, "No television, no radio, do your chores, Ashanti." As she continued her singing, Mama Douglas came storming down the stairs to admonish her daughter. "Didn't I tell you to turn the radio off? No television or radio till you've finished your chores." To which Ashanti informed her that it wasn't the radio but her own singing voice, leaving Mama stunned. This was a pivotal moment in Ashanti's life, a truly life-changing epiphany of realization. She would never look back. Mama Douglas realized she had a jewel on her hands and set about entering her daughter in local talent contests. She triumphed in them and was developing a word-of-mouth reputation around her neighborhood. She danced in a show at Carnegie Hall and had a part in the Disney television musical Polly. In addition, she began developing her own songwriting skills, learning from the music on her parents' stereo: Stevie Wonder, Donny Hathaway, Heatwave, the Delphonics, and other soul legends. She honed and harnessed her ability to create a story that people could relate to. Her parents were extremely encouraging and supportive. Growing up as a kid on the block, Ashanti was surrounded by boys and was welcomed into their circle. Although she wore dresses and other feminine clothes, she was a tomboy, hanging out with the lads, playing basketball, riding her bike and kicking the ball in the street. She was treated as a little sister. Meanwhile, her mother had decided to become her manager, calling herself a momager. Fiercely protective of her child and convinced of her blossoming prowess, she wanted to be involved with everything, to shield Ashanti from any ruthless backstabbing or exploitation. She began taking control of her starlet's finances, decisions, and her general well-being, but never conformed to the showbiz cliché of the pushy mom. Always armed with good advice, she encouraged Ashanti for the right reasons, but never imposed anything on her. She was primarily concerned for her girl and wanted her to do what she wanted, go where her heart told her, ignoring the doom-mongerers. As it dawned on the Douglas clan that a budding diva was on their hands, the wheels were set in motion for a decent, serious stab at making it. The talent shows kept on coming, and Mama Douglas began shopping around for a record deal. However, the family lacked the cash needed to enter a proper recording studio and cut a demo, so Ashanti had to parade her wares in person when it came to meeting record labels. Most young teenage girls would be terrified of getting up in front of anyone to sing and dance, but it didn't faze the precocious Ashanti one bit to showcase her talent in this way to a mass of A&R people and label executives. Even at such a young age, she was resolute, self-assured and self-contained, totally at one with herself and her abilities.
Gotti and Ja and Chris and BJ, all my guys, they're good dudes, man. And I know them personally. You know, I don't wish any harm on anyone.
With a solid family support network behind her, Ashanti set about trying to get herself a record deal. By the age of 14, she was the subject of a major bidding war between rival companies. Jive Records, EMI, and Bad Boy all came in for this remarkable hot young talent. Ashanti's meeting with Puff Daddy at Bad Boy, where she sang a Mary J. Blige song, was nothing if not eventful. After she'd delivered her performance, she sat opposite him at his desk and discussed contracts and such like. Then suddenly, he pulled out a bottle of cologne, which he said he was intending to sell. He smelt it, enthused about its aroma, and brought it over to Ashanti, asking her to smell it and offer her view. She took one sniff and exclaimed, "Oh, pew, it stinks, I hate it," to which Puffy responded by bursting into a fit of laughter. He then revealed to Ashanti that it had been a test to ascertain whether or not she was a real person. Her comeback was, "Well, you know that I am because that stinks." As it turned out, she didn't go with Puffy in the Bad Boy deal offered. Instead, she signed on the dotted line with Jive. Things were looking up for Ashanti. Her dreams of stardom seemed to be achievable. However, her contract with Jive didn't turn out as she'd hoped. Jive's direction was becoming more pop-orientated, and they foresaw a kiddie market for their burgeoning R&B superstar in the making. Ashanti wanted none of this, and held convictions about herself as a serious, mature artist. Jive effectively treated her as a pop puppet, allowing her no creative freedom and input into her music and lyrics. So she bailed out and the deal fell through. In the meantime, she kept plugging away, refusing to become disheartened. There was no way anyone was going to put Ashanti off her dreams. She kept her nose to the grindstone in high school, writing for the English club and winning medals on the athletics team. She started hanging around with a crew of it girls who called themselves the Magnificent Seven. On one famous occasion, she was performing at New York's China Club when she gave her audience more than they bargained for. The straps on her new dress started coming down, and she tried holding them up whilst grasping her mic and singing. She kept the show going, despite having plenty to blush about. Her dad was even in the audience. The host of the show, a local comedian, applauded her tenacity at the end and asked the audience, "Who wants to see Ashanti again? Let's see more." Then, some 3 years later, another chance at the big time emerged. Epic Records came in with an offer she couldn't refuse, even though it involved her having to leave home for the first time. Epic was based in Atlanta, so at the tender age of 17, she was forced to uproot herself and move to that faraway city. She already had an album of songs finished and ready for production, and was chomping at the bit to realise her wildest ambitions. However, her dreams soon turned sour again. She was a vulnerable teenager living alone in a new, different state, away from her friends and family, and things weren't going to plan. She was struggling with her label, with her music, and wanted out. All of her friends were off to college, having a great social life and meeting boys at parties. She, on the other hand, was moping about in her flat all day, watching Ricky Lake and cartoons. This was as tough as life within the music industry gets, and a highly unpleasant time for Ashanti. She felt like she didn't fit in and was unsure about her direction. She was struggling to get by, never feeling as though she were in control of her life or her music, and now she didn't even have the support network of her family to fall back on. Living in Atlanta was difficult to say the least, but ultimately part of her learning curve. Ashanti decided that enough was enough and relocated to New York, the place she knew best. A mooted deal with Noontime failed to live up to expectations, so she began hanging out at studios, attempting to meet the right people. It became evident that producers liked what they saw, and so gradually her optimism was restored. And life for Ashanti was shortly to turn around completely, when a business associate hooked her up with Irv Gotti of the Murder Inc. imprint for some production work on her material. This would prove to be the start of something big, a genuine catalyst for change and positivity. From this point onwards, Ashanti Douglas would never look back.
You know, you see Murder Inc., you see Irv, Ja, you know, BJ, Chris. They're all big dudes, and I'm around them all the time. So it kind of knocks my hustle a little bit. Just a little bit, you know.
Things had been beginning to look bleak for Ashanti after her failed dealings with Jive, Epic and Noontime, but her return to New York proved a pivotal moment. Her introduction to Murder Inc.'s Irv Gotti certainly helped set things in motion, as he immediately noticed her dancing and acting abilities, in addition to her astonishing vocal prowess. Her sound was infectious and caught his attention like no other female singer ever had. An initial collaboration in the studio led to a record deal with Murder Inc., so Ashanti became the first R&B singer on the hip-hop powerhouse label, famous for its roster of Ja Rule, Vita and Charlie Baltimore. The demure and cautious Ashanti was initially hesitant to sign on the dotted line, but she filled a void in the Murder Inc. stable of talent. What had been purely a hip-hop label became stronger with the arrival of the newest R&B girl on the block. With her daughter's best interests at heart, Mama Douglas had encouraged Ashanti to keep her options open by filling in some college application forms just in case things didn't work out. But Ashanti realised this was her big chance. As Gotti was wooing Ashanti to his label, her mother asked him why the company was called Murder Inc. His response was, "Because we're killing them with our music." This reassured Mama Douglas, who had worried that the name might signify something altogether darker and more lurid. She was also pleased and satisfied with such an explanation, partly because this was exactly how she'd always wanted people to perceive her daughter, with a, "Wow, she is so hot, she's killing them." The marketing team at Murder Inc. immediately went to work to promote their new protégé in time for the debut release. Her first musical outing, once signed to Murder Inc., was a guest spot on the track How We Roll by Big Punisher from his LP Endangered Species in 2001. Then followed a series of groundbreaking duets, which made her a stateside star in 2002. First, she was introduced to Ja Rule, who was working on his Pain Is Love album and wanted a female vocal on the hypnotic Always on Time cut. She duly obliged and turned it into his biggest hit to date, reaching the top of the US charts and making history as Def Jam's top-selling single. Then her work on the reigning Don of the Terror Squad, Fat Joe's What's Love single, also featuring Ja Rule, blew its rivals out of the water and hit top spot. Ashanti stole both songs away from the thug rappers and created an almighty buzz for her own work. In addition, she penned hit singles for Jennifer Lopez, Ain't It Funny and I'm Real, which helped give the former fly girl turned actress turned singer an injection of urban credibility. As soon as anybody heard these collaborations, the first words on their lips were invariably, "Who the hell is this female singer?" These songs received major airwave and video exposure, and music magazines wanted to get the lowdown on this rising young star. She settled in at Murder Inc. with no problems and was immediately accepted by the macho hip-hop contingent on the label. In fact, being around these men influenced and fed into her own songwriting, as she was picking up things she hadn't noticed before and was able to take her writing skills to another level. Observing the trials and tribulations of her co-rappers, she gained further insights into the reality of relationships and the problems people have to endure. It proved to be an invaluable learning curve. There was no doubt that something special and original was going to emerge from this marriage.
We kind of didn't have as much time. It's like Foolish was on the radio, we had a video out and no album. So we had to go in the studio and chef it up.
Now it was time for Ashanti to hone her own craft, cut her debut album and get it out to the masses. In March 2002, her Foolish single was unleashed upon an unsuspecting public, ripping apart the charts and receiving immediate, heavy video rotation. All indications showed that the transition to a hip-hop label had been a smooth and successful one. An infectious brew of edgy hip-hop and sweet bedroom soul, Foolish sent critics and punters crazy and hit the top spot in the charts in April 2002, making her the first female artist to have 3 singles in the US top 10 at the same time. She was also the first act to do so since the Beatles. Incredibly, it remained at the top until the end of June. Expectations for her debut album were now extremely high. The Foolish single was a massive achievement, using the familiar refrain from Notorious B.I.G.'s One More Chance as the basis for her song. True old-school aficionados will remember the familiar melody from the original DeBarge hit, Stay With Me, from 1983. This insanely memorable track delivers from the first few bars, layering her soft, swooning and whisper-delicate voice, at times reminiscent of Aaliyah, over the loping mid-tempo bounce of the rhythmic bass. Produced by Irv Gotti, Foolish is soulful heaven, boasting hooks aplenty, a dollop of attitude and gorgeous musical flourishes. The promo video for Foolish is inspired and sensational, heavily influenced by the film Goodfellas. In it, she somehow straddles the divide between hot vixen and naive girl. Even when she gets down with actor Terrence Howard and lays down the law, you still picture her as somehow innocent. Same deal with the lyric on Fat Joe's What's Love. When I look in your eyes, there's no stopping me. I want the Don Joey crack on top of me. From the voice of another diva, the line could come across as decadent, dirty and insatiable, but from Ashanti, the result is just adorable, transcendent bliss. With the crazy rotation given to these songs, the public was primed for the Ashanti long-playing experience. Little did everyone know that she was already hard at work in the studio with a pen and pad, writing her entire album, Foolish had galvanised fans to demand an earlier-than-planned release of the LP, which promised to be a subtle, powerful blend of rootsy grooves, R&B styling and edgy hip-hop. Released on April the 9th, her eponymous debut album is a seductive mix of bittersweet soul hip-hop. It was unveiled to waves of acclaim in the US and Europe and smashed Lauryn Hill's record for the highest first-week sales of a debut album by a female artist. Astonishingly, it shifted 503,000 copies in its first week in the US, debuting at number 1, a major achievement for a relative unknown, with almost no expectations resting on her shoulders. The Ashanti album knocked Celine Dion off her pedestal and even surpassed the debut solo efforts of the likes of Alicia Keys, Christina Aguilera and Jennifer Lopez. Overnight, she went from being the girl who sings the hooks of rappers' songs to becoming a major artist in her own right, and one with a lot of industry clout. The Ashanti album is an exquisite, perfectly composed piece of work, lovingly prepared and containing some of the most thrilling, compelling modern R&B you're ever likely to hear. Eschewing much of the genre's bland production and over-reliance on the same hackneyed lyrical clichés, it deals with a variety of human dilemmas and emotions in a thoughtful, eminently danceable and effortlessly commercial manner. The quality of the songwriting is consistently high throughout, and Ashanti's voice melts even the most hardened and jaded of listeners. The intelligent use of the Gap Band's Outstanding imbues the mid-tempo bubbler Happy with a kind of easy familiarity. Leaving, Always on Time, Part 2, in which Ashanti reprises her collaboration with Ja Rule on a sequel to his hit, is another surefire dance floor smash, figuring heavily on club and radio playlists throughout the summer. Unfoolish, effectively a remix of the Foolish single, features an astutely mixed series of verses from the notorious B.I.G. cut, Fucking You Tonight. TK is another irrepressible anthem, based around an old Scarface tune. But this record is far from being merely a compendium of obvious club tracks. These are the tracks that the album hangs on, but elsewhere there's a surprising variety of tempo, atmosphere and mood. In showcasing an enviable ability to combine writing and performing chores, she faithfully charts the fluctuations of romantic relationships in a series of melancholy, heart-rending ballads. Cuts like Baby, Rescue, Movies and Scared are perfect examples of her craft, meshing together her alluring, incandescent voice with a maturity of songwriting that belies her years. The closing love song, Over, raises goosebumps on the skin and provides a satisfying denouement to this ravishing, life-affirming song cycle. Written entirely by Ashanti, her debut release is an overwhelming achievement, taking the innovations of Lauryn Hill, Mary J. Blige and other streetwise R&B sirens to another level entirely, a greater intensity of feeling and sharper musicality. A couple of years previously, she'd just been another underappreciated New York wannabe, whereas now she was the hottest girl in urban black music. Meanwhile, a new rising pack of R&B pretenders had emerged to mount a challenge to Ashanti's throne: Truth Hurts, Tweet, Fundisha and Sharissa.
We have like one feature kinda, Chink Santana. No, I have something coming up and I kinda want Stevie Wonder to be a big part of it.
2002 was a momentous year for Ashanti as she blitzed all her rivals to cement her status as Queen of Contemporary R&B. Her all-conquering album and her stadium tour, christened the Triple Threat Tour, alongside Ja Rule, Jay-Z, the ROC and the whole Bad Boy family, propelled her into the full glare of an expectant public asking themselves, does Ashanti live up to the hype? The forthright Irv Gotti was keen to portray his prodigy as Murder Inc.'s Queen of Hip-Hop and R&B, a bold statement, and one which inevitably provoked much debate both within the music press and hip-hop community. What was immediately clear, though, was that the Ashanti album more than justified the hyperbole. With barely a pause from the sensuous cooing, she published her own book of poetry entitled Foolish, Unfoolish, Reflections on Love, which drew on a new maturity. She shifted 5 million units worldwide, appeared in front of millions of fans, guested in an episode of Buffy, and was tapped to star in a remake of the classic Hollywood musical Sparkle. She also got to meet one of her idols at the ASCAP Awards, Stevie Wonder. She was knocked out by the fact that he told her he loved her records. Then she went one better by actually performing alongside the soul genius and the Isley Brothers at the VH1 Divas Duets show in May. As well as collaborating with these two legends, she delivered a new song of her own, Rock With You. Ashanti also sang at the Costume Institute Gala in April and performed with a host of luminaries at a tribute concert for Ray Charles at the end of the year. Many of the great man's songs were sung by acts such as Kylie, Luther Vandross, Patti LaBelle and Shaka Khan, backed by the KTU Orchestra led by Joey Melotti at the Madison Square Garden. As if further evidence were necessary to convince the world of Ashanti's preeminence in 2002, she received a slew of nominations for various awards as the year came to a close, and actually picked up a significant number. She won at the 2002 Teen Choice Awards, Lady of Soul Awards, MOBO Awards, and, incredibly, won all 8 of her nominations at the Billboard ceremony. She was also nominated for trophies at the Much Music Video, BET, MTV Video Music, Kiss 92 FM, Fannies, Z100Z and VH1 Big In 2002 awards. Her triumph in the Lady of Soul Aretha Franklin Awards, however, caused a degree of resentment within certain music industry quarters. Grumbling naysayers pointed out that she didn't deserve to win the award, that it was an insult to the legacy of Aretha Franklin. They claimed she couldn't hack it live, that she didn't have any real talent, that she only recreated songs that were already hits, that she should never have been given a chance in the first place by A&R representatives. The bad-mouthing stretched as far as an ongoing dispute between Murder Inc. and the G Unit, with Ashanti finding herself the butt of some of the punchlines in their lyrical duels. Ashanti's sideburns is thicker than mine, rhymes Lloyd Banks on What Goes Around from DJ Envy's Block Party album. Throughout, Ashanti remained dignified and aloof, refusing to get involved in a squabble. Meanwhile, as 2003 kicked in, our Golden Girl was already talking up her sophomore album, claiming it would be a significant improvement on the first.
Chink Santana, one of the other producers, one of the Murder Inc. producers, he came from DC. So there's a lot of players out there, bass players, guitar, drums. So he knew a lot of people, and they would come fly down to the studio and chef everything up.
Ashanti's second album was preceded by the release of the delicious single, Rock With You, Oh Baby. It was a surefire smash, complete with a keyboard sample from the Michael Jackson classic Rock With You and a breathy performance which sends shivers down the spine. However, the song, one of the first she wrote for the new album, has a checkered history, as Ashanti fell out with Irv Gotti during its genesis. Obsessed by the need to improve upon everything from the debut disc, her perfectionism riled the label boss. He was ready to master the song, but she constantly returned it to enhance every last aspect. Gotti assured her that the version she'd recorded was pristine and needed no extra embellishments, but Ashanti raged against this and kept over-egging the pudding. The arguments about overproducing went back and forth during one intense, long, dark night of the soul. The argument was finally resolved, and the single went interstellar, piercing the top 5 of Billboard's Hot 100 and Hot R&B hip-hop singles and tracks charts. Its video became one of the 3 most played promos on MTV and BET. In July, her second album release, Chapter 2, was finally unleashed. Its first week sales topped 300,000 and it zoomed to number 1 in the charts. Chapter 2, co-produced by Chink Santana and Irv Gotti, boasts 15 cuts of pristine, peerless perfection. Although it doesn't stray too far from the love and breakup themes of her debut, it displays her growth and versatility as a singer-songwriter. Breakup to Makeup is a summery, beautiful creation, reminiscent of Mary J. Blige's Sweet Thing, while Rock With You sends a soulful siren call both to a lover and to the listeners. It has the same reflective melancholy of such earlier songs as Foolish and Happy. The introspective Rain on Me finds her determined not to repeat the same mistakes made in one failed relationship, and the gritty Then You Gone, with rhymes by Chink Santana, ponders the inherent transience of existence over an ethereal strum and insistent hook. This is a far more consistent affair across the board, offering more depth and colour in the arrangements, production and atmosphere. The album was showcased by promotional performances at HBO's On the Record with Bob Costas, the Essence Music Festival in New Orleans, and at numerous award ceremonies. MTV ran an Ashanti Weekend special in June, and she made the covers of Source, Elle Girl and Blender magazines. Meanwhile, an intense rivalry was being established with Beyonce. Ashanti narrowly pipped her new rival to the post when Chapter 2 was released alongside Beyonce's Dangerously in Love. For her debut, Ashanti had been pitted against Missy Elliott's protégé Tweet, which had been a walkover. Now she found herself on one side of yet another record industry sales and PR battle. Any lingering suspicion that it was all unintentional or just PR hogwash was dispelled when they were released so close together, and Ashanti donned the same dress in her video as the one worn by Beyonce on the inside cover of her album. The awards kept coming thick and fast in 2003. She picked up a Grammy for Best Contemporary R&B Album and Best New Artist, an NAACP Image Award, 2 American Music Awards, 2 Soul Train trophies, and was nominated for the Best R&B Video Prize in the 2003 MTV Video Music Awards. In addition, she triumphed at the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards. In August, Ashanti opened for R. Kelly during his 5-date tour from the 15th to the 30th, after touring throughout July with Mariah Carey in tow.
As humble as I am, you always need something to make sure that you stay on your toes.
While it is true that the public is all too familiar with the visible persona of Ashanti, the sleek, sultry uber babe of the impassioned songwriting and honey-coated sensual voice, we are less au fait with the private reality behind the myth and the mask. So, what is it that drives the queen of R&B onwards and upwards? What turns her on and motivates her? Step forward, the real Ashanti Douglas. Well, despite her amazing success, Ashanti remains humble, centered, and unaffected. She claims to owe her ascension to God and has shown no signs of changing or becoming a prima donna. Everything is still hitting her as new, so she hasn't had time to become jaundiced, weary, or blasé yet. She is still overwhelmed by what has happened to her in the last few years. Her mother and co-manager says her girl deserves it all because she worked so hard on her way up and more than paid her dues. The family all sacrificed a lot to fulfill the dream. The ascent hasn't happened overnight. It has been a long, hard struggle with many peaks and troughs along the way. Some of the hurtful, insidious criticism levelled at her from some quarters might have cracked a lesser artist, but she's remained above the petty bad-mouthing about her not being able to sing live or not deserving the Aretha Franklin Lady of Soul Award. She accepts that such negativity comes with the territory of being on a massive label and being recognised as the leading light of female R&B. Ashanti is thick-skinned enough to deal with any unpleasant backstabbing or negative comments within the industry. She accepts that the music industry is ruthless, often vicious, peopled by sharks. Her mentality is to rise above it, keep focused and concentrate on what she does best. She is aware that things can get to you so much that you could crumble, but she's adamant that she won't let certain factions get to her. She stresses the importance of keeping a tight rein on one's feelings and emotions, as other people can take advantage and exploit those who are open. As for accusations that Irv Gotti has been involved in the laundering of drugs proceeds, Ashanti wishes that the unfounded allegations would cease. She promotes peace in her music and her life, and wishes an end to the various investigations and allegations surrounding Murder Inc. and its employees. Although Gotti, who has proclaimed his innocence to MTV News amongst other outlets, has not been formally charged with any specific crime, if the accusations were ever to be proven true, then her label and subsequently her career could be drastically affected. But, much like her boss, she's not showing any signs of being shaken up. With Murder Inc.'s legal and criminal woes and murky incidents surrounding label mates Cadillac Tar, Charlie Baltimore and Black Child, there have been times when Ashanti has carried the fate of her esteemed label on her petite shoulders. Ja Rule has been there or thereabouts, but even he took a 6-month sabbatical to give his fans some respite. She's been extraordinarily calm, collected and focused throughout this time. As for the competition and rivalry with other R&B stars, she refuses to enter into any point scoring or bitching. She found herself within a pack of rising R&B singers such as Tweet, Truth Hurts, Fundisha and Sharissa when she made her mark, and is now fighting off the challenge of Beyonce. She views all this as healthy competition, nothing more, but can see through the media's game of trying to play her off against other divas in the limelight, to create a personal rivalry when there isn't one. All that concerns her is making as good a product as possible, to produce something so real and reflective that people get it and truly feel where she's coming from. She is obsessed with tapping into and articulating feelings which ordinary people experience during their lives. As for a life outside her vocation, she must stake a claim to being the hardest working person in showbiz. She followed her debut album with another barely 12 months later and has even published her own book. She rarely has a week to herself. She relaxes and switches off by various means. She likes to get into bed with a tub of Haagen-Dazs ice cream and snuggle up to Cartoon Network on satellite television. Other times she'll head down to the beach and get a bronze tan lying in the sun. When it comes to getting down with a guy, she prefers to put sensual, slow, atmospheric music on her stereo, sometimes even her own music. In fact, she recommends her song I Don't Mind as a consummate get-in-the-mood record. She says that playing her own music to a guy as he's getting jiggy with her boosts his ego, as if she's actually singing to him personally. Away from the music biz, she has a very loving, tight-knit family setup. If she needs to chat about a problem or just catch up on some gossip, she will instinctively go to her parents and sister. Having such a close, settled, supportive family helps keep Ashanti sane amidst all the madness surrounding Murder Inc. and the corporate music and entertainment world which she inhabits. Despite the massive acclaim and attention showered upon her, Ashanti Douglas is a remarkably normal, well-adjusted individual, without any obvious hang-ups, flaws or prejudices. She inhabits a harder shell when it comes to pressures from within the music industry, but in her day-to-day existence, she remains admirably self-effacing, modest, courteous and generous. The private reality behind the public myth is one of charm, decency, honour and dignity.
At first, it was very hard for me to get back into the groove of writing, only because I kept saying to myself, okay, it's gotta be hotter than the first album, it's gotta be hotter. So I would listen to the things I was saying and how I was saying it on the first album, and then just keep tweaking them.
As a young child, Ashanti was raised within an all-consuming musical environment, which clearly strongly affected her formative years. Her parents' stereo was pumping out the likes of Heatwave, Stevie Wonder, Donny Hathaway, Roberta Flack and the Delphonics, all purveyors of timeless, classic 70s R&B and soul. These evergreen sounds worked their way into her consciousness and drew out an appreciation of harmony, melody, and direct heart-on-sleeve expression. Ella Fitzgerald was also an early influence via her mother. Ella taught her about the importance of phrasing and how to make a song your own. As she hit her teens and began developing distinct affiliations, she fell for the swooning sound of modern R&B, and in particular the swaggering charm, style, attitude and delivery of Mary J. Blige. She loved the fact that Mary didn't just settle for bland lullabies or come-to-bed ballads, but expanded her repertoire to embrace spitting rhymes, bump-and-grind breaks, and soul-tinged essays on love gone wrong. The previous queen of hip-hop soul was adept at blending hardcore beats and emotion-drenched lyrics, wrapping them up in a package of streetwise sophistication and delivering them to a wide audience without compromising or diluting her art or her message. This is where Ashanti wanted to take her music. Mary set the standard, rewrote the rulebook, paving the way for Ashanti to follow. When it came to the recording of his prized Assets albums, Irv Gotti looked to Mary J. Blige for inspiration as a template. He desperately wanted Ashanti to pick up where Mary's My Life left off, to take the baton and run with it in a contemporary fashion, putting her own spin on the sound. By no means did he see her as commandeering the slot of the new face of R&B, but he clearly saw that she had the potential to usurp her heroine in the musical stakes. He treated Ashanti as Murder Inc.'s princess, with a gangster edge. Whereas Mary J. Blige hit a nerve with women, he saw his protégé as ultimately appealing to as many men, thugs, gangsters and regular men, as females. Ashanti was capable of appealing to both sexes, of flipping the hardcore songs on their head and making them sweeter. As Ashanti has grown up, she has assimilated a greater array of musical influences, encompassing the likes of Blue Magic, Lauryn Hill, Aretha, Mariah Carey, hard-hitting hardcore hip-hop and old-time soul and funk. This gives her a wider knowledge and a bigger, more colourful musical palette with which to work. She's well aware of the pitfalls of stagnating, resting on one's laurels and becoming complacent. Some major artists, in all kinds of musical fields, tend to get lazy and stop exploring new music once they've established themselves. But Ashanti keeps her mind and ears open to new developments. In her chosen genre, new starlets can be relied upon to make their mark on a regular basis, so she is determined to stay on top, take notice of any young upstarts and learn from, while assimilating, their innovations. This doesn't mean that Ashanti is going to plagiarise or recycle other people's ideas. She's far too idiosyncratic, dignified and inventive herself to resort to such skullduggery. It also means that we shouldn't necessarily expect a new metal direction sometime in the near future. R&B is what she does best, and she can be expected to keep on finding new ways of expressing herself within this genre, this framework, for years to come. She will doubtless find inspiration from all manner of avenues, meshing them together to create her own hybrids.
You got to keep it moving. You know what I mean? You can't please everyone. And if the records are hot and the majority of the people at 4 million or 5 million that we're at now, I'm rocking with them.
Ashanti is an emblem of 21st century black sisterhood, a true maverick, an inspirational figure, an object of lust, a dynamic, independent spirit. Her music speaks to the heart, the brain, and the groin. Her crystalline voice, those distinguished, alluring features, her remarkable affinity for collaboration, her instinctive ear for a commercial hook, her beguiling songcraft, all these things conspire to make Ashanti a gargantuan force. At once engaging and aloof, she transcends the ham-fisted clichés and self-parodies of much R&B, taps into the earthier tradition of classic soul and funk, and yet remains outside both camps, free of pretense and apology. Out of her consciousness tumbles her strange, note-perfect, twisty melodied songs musing on relationships, love, lust, and the ineffable separateness of human souls. They perch poignantly on the cusp of simplicity and sophistication. Neither soporific muzak or gun-happy gangster, her expertly crafted music speaks of eternal truths. Life can suck. Love is often great, but can be torture also. Carnality is damn pleasurable. Women can get a raw deal, but have to be strong in a man's world. Initially dismissed in some quarters for a round-the-way girl appeal, she's proven all doubters wrong with a succession of remarkable hits and a brace of stunning, hypnotic, wondrous albums. She has drop-kicked the whole Ashanti versus Beyonce claptrap firmly through the goalposts of oral satisfaction. Her best recordings have the same chill to the back of the neck quality as the warm wind in summertime. Given the huge success of Murder Inc. on the back of an inspiring hip-hop roster, there was never any uncertainty about her success. Combine the singing and songwriting skills of Ashanti with the red-hot street studio sound of Irv Gotti, and the result is pure class. Nothing less than pop platinum. On top of her obvious musical prowess, she has a caramel complexion, almond eyes, and a small, curvaceous frame. Taken together, these ingredients form an overwhelming case for pop genius. There's nobody around who can even get close. Ashanti possesses the ability to come over all vulnerable and feminine, yet there is no doubt that she packs a formidable punch. She takes no prisoners and is very much her own person. She's also the type of girl upon whom would-be suitors want to lavish everything, but could still take home and chill out with. This is the Ashanti vibe and the ultimate in sex appeal. She scored 3 big hits even before her first album was released. And when it was, it knocked Celine Dion off her perch, crashing into the charts at pole position. The enormity of this achievement is impressive because it even surpasses the debut solo efforts of the likes of Alicia Keys, Jennifer Lopez, and Christina Aguilera. Her style is unique, being clean yet sexy, fashionable and relevant, with just a hint of ghetto princess and haute couture tossed into the melting pot. With so many female singers today opting for flesh and scandal, it's refreshing to come across a genuinely sexy, beautiful, intelligent, forthright artist with genuine talent and no interest in selling out to the lowest common denominator. The question of longevity does arise and needs addressing, particularly given that she operates in a musical genre not known for its ability to reinvent itself. The world hardly needs any more strident, bootylicious R&B divas, and few ever last the distance. So what chance has Ashanti of transcending her immediate pigeonhole and becoming remembered for creating evergreen, timeless sounds? Has she got it in her to produce a body of work that proves appealing for successive generations, the track record of a Roberta Flack, the catalogue of an Aretha Franklin? Boasting a distinctive, memorable, powerful, soulful voice certainly goes some way, and in this respect Ashanti can do no wrong. Both on her solo works and equally as a guest on other artists' records, there's no mistaking her for anyone else. Her inspired vocal flights, whether they be demanding conjugal rights or crying for freedom, stake out a claim for the ecstatic transcendence of the imagination. Vocally, she's a cut above your generic bedside diva. As for her musical skills, she possesses a knack for knocking out mercurial, instantly remembered, hook-laden hits, a gift which tends to be undervalued. She consistently demonstrates an ability to combine writing and performing duties with a high level of craft and attention to detail, faithfully chronicling the ups and downs of relationships. The maturity of her songs belies her youthfulness, and tracks like Foolish and Over have the depth, immediacy, and irresistible construction to keep cropping up on jukeboxes for decades to come. Her talent knows no bounds, and her energy is ceaseless. Her awareness of new sounds and directions, her willingness to learn from others, her innate understanding of what moves her listeners, these are all intuitive gifts which cannot easily be replicated. There is nothing remotely cynical, underhand, or exploitative about Ashanti. Her music is pure, heartwarming, emotional in the extreme, lucid, funky as hell, and always intelligent. She never excludes or pontificates, and her lyrics are always sharp, concise, and sparsely poetic. She has a streetwise sophistication which surpasses that of Mary J. Blige and Lauryn Hill, and always delivers at the highest level. There's always going to be a ready audience for anyone meshing heartfelt lyrics with hardcore beats, and in this respect, Ashanti is the reigning queen of hip-hop soul. Her tracks are not transient, they are steeped in love for the R&B tradition, but also aim to push the envelope that bit further along. They are ineffably musical, stitched together lovingly with one eye on the now and the other on the future. Artists such as Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin carved out a legendary status for themselves because they strove to do their own thing, refused to be shackled by the record industry's short-termism, and constantly experimented and reinvented their style and sound. The problem with much of today's soul is that there is little reinvention, with producers content to peddle derivatives and third-rate imitations of the real thing. R&B is no longer the fertile, strident force it once was, but Ashanti's refusal to stagnate and repeat herself places her in a lineage with the greats of yesteryear. There seems no doubt that her art will linger and attract more and more people as the years pass, and the frightening thing is that she will only improve. Her tunes are designed for serious listening, as well as bedroom action or dance floor jiggery-pokery, setting her apart from most practitioners of contemporary hip-hop soul and R&B. Her records feed into a discernible tradition, but also kick against convention. This is timeless music. Long after we've gone, its unassailable spirit will survive, and its messages will nestle their way into the hearts and souls of a new generation.
Thank you for buying Maximum Ashanti. We hope you enjoyed it. Watch out for further titles on Chrome Dreams coming up soon. If you did enjoy it or have any comments or suggestions, please write to us at Chrome Dreams, PO Box 230, New Malden, Surrey, UK KT3 6YY, or email us on mail@chromedreams.co.uk. Details of our full catalogue are listed on our website at www.chromedreams.co.uk. Thanks again for listening, and goodbye for now.